Let's move to the border patrols that are down there now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it's sufficient? Do you think that it's overdone? Do you think that the $18 million that's being spent on National Guard is the right amount or too much, or should we have it at all? Where should we be on that?
I supported the DPS surge. That's a piece of that monthly cost. And I think we've seen an effective outcome as a consequence of that. Those are boots on the ground that have detention and arrest authority. I disagreed with the decision to send boots to the ground without that authority. As much respect as I have for the National Guard, and I do, and the men and women who serve there, who are willing to do whatever is asked of them, the local community input was ignored. What I asked was that the governor convene a special session of the legislature to hear from the local law enforcement and Border Patrol about what it was they felt would best support their efforts there. Notably, in a legislative House hearing, both the National Guard and the DPS said that neither of them had been consulted before the governor made the order to send those troops to the border. It's at approximately an $11 million price tag per month for them to be there. The local law enforcement had asked that rather than having that incredible influx of security sent down, that we provide instead the right boots for them. And the boots they were asking for were deputies for their sheriffs who had detention and arrest authority, and they felt like their wishes had been ignored. I've heard quite a bit from local elected officials there in the Rio Grande Valley, particularly, who feel as though their communities have been militarized, who feel as though comments referring to them as third world or practices that are occurring there as being third world have been incredibly harmful to them in terms of their economic development opportunities. It is a bit reminiscent of when Governor Perry made a rather cavalier statement about bullets flying through the air in El Paso, when that wasn't true. El Paso suffered the economic consequences of that for quite some time, even though for 4 years they've been named the safest large city in the country. And I think we have to be thoughtful and careful about making sure that we're providing appropriate security, but that we're also listening to the input of local communities and partnering with them to provide it in a way that is appropriate for them and also is sensitive to making sure that they're not being labeled as unsafe and certainly not as third world.
So what do we do now? Do we bring the Guard folks back?
I believe that they're likely to be brought back even before the January legislative session convenes. It's my understanding that the resources that are available to keep them there will be soon running out. And again, I think that points to the fact that that decision was one that was made without a real end game in sight. And the question we have to ask at the end of the day is, if we've had the National Guard on the border for 60 days, it took quite a ramp up, quite a training ramp up for them to actually have their feet on the ground there. It was a good month, 6 weeks before that happened, while that $11 million cost was being incurred. And they likely now will be coming home very soon, and the question we have to ask ourselves is, what purpose did that serve?
And the answer? It didn't serve a purpose?
Some say that.
What do you say?
Some say that Governor Perry, of course, was using this as a feather in his presidential aspirational cap. I think there's probably some legitimacy to that perspective. I don't think that it was a conservative approach. I don't think that it added to keeping our border secure, and I think that the most secure approach would have been, as I said, listening to the local law enforcement there and providing them the tools that they were asking for, which would have come at a much lower cost.